Hey, welcome to the Ethics Experts. If it's your first time joining us, welcome. And if you're a returning subscriber, hey, friend, good to see you. See what happens when you subscribe. You get a bonus greeting on every episode. On this episode, we talked to the one and only Ashley. She's the author of this really cool book called A Curious Mind, The Art of Mastering Investigative Conversations. She has a really cool background as an investigator. And this book is all about applying better techniques, whether it's in personal situations or it's in investigative situations, better techniques to help the subject drop their guard. We can never connect with people. We can never get the information we need in an investigation unless the person we're talking to's guard drops. And so she dives really deep into this concept in this episode and in the book. So I hope you enjoy and pick up the book, A Curious Mind, on Amazon. See you soon.
Welcome to the Ethics Experts, where we're elevating ethics and compliance and HR to the strategic level it's supposed to be.
Welcome to the Ethics Experts. Ashley, how's it going?
It's going good. How about you?
Good. I'm excited to get you on. We had such an amazing pre-show and like so much of the stuff we talked about. I don't know. We just were like on the same page about you have this new book that came out all about a curious mind. You have a cool background of being an investigator. You recovered a lot of money for folks. So yeah, welcome to the Ethics Experts. Really thrilled to have you on. Let's dive right into the book. The name of your book is A Curious Mind. So talk to us a little bit about the angle of the book and what you hope to achieve with it. How did you kind of birth this book into the world?
Sure. So A Curious Mind, the subtitle Mastering the Art of Investigation. I know it's kind of like the Mastering the Art of Investigative Conversations. It really just, it started with a natural curiosity, empathy. And I realized it's those skills that helped hone me as an investigator. And what I hoped for everyday readers when they pick up the book is I think we all approach certain facets of our life with curiosity. Mm-hmm. And sometimes we check it, and sometimes we are just let it fly over our heads. And I think what would improve, I'd say, relationships with other people, like say with your coworkers or your friends or your family members, and to deepen relationships and really get to uncover truths that were hidden before, is to approach it with a natural curiosity. And I think what makes great investigators different from average ones is that techniques alone isn't enough just to get people to open up, because if that's the case, then everyone would be an investigator. But I think is like mastering just this situational awareness of other people, and if not compassionate, but empathetic towards other people, and and to dive back to curiosity, it's about making space for other people.
Right.
And I think oftentimes we have an idea in our head about like the dialogue of the direction of what we're going to go. And then you actually sit in front of somebody, and then it's like it completely goes out the window. So it's not to say that you can't go into it with an idea of like what you expect, but also being receptive and reactive enough to pick up on what the cues of the other person sitting in front of you. Because I think people reveal hidden truths about themselves just through, body language, through the phrasing of the tone, people have stories within themselves, and then it's just a matter of like timing and tact in order to uncover those stories.
Yeah, it's kind of like the best investigators have a good balance of both the science and the art of investigations. The science being the techniques, the procedure, the process that needs to get done. But then, this book is really about the art. How do we have better investigative conversations with that sort of outward focus that ends up revealing the things necessary to sort of populate the work plan or populate the science part of that process.
Exactly. It's a little bit more nuanced because, when I tell people that I'm an investigator, it's like there's this immediate like, oh no, like, are you going to investigate me? Like,
And the answer is yes.
yes, it's always yes. Yeah, but like I think it's when people hear the word investigator, they think of like Olivia Benson from Law and Order,
Hmm.
and immediately people's guards are up. And I get it because that's their frame of reference. And I think people immediately jump to like this situation room scenario or like this interrogation room. But the thing is, like most investigators, when they start off, they don't dive right into like hardballing and try to get the truth out of you. It's like they approach you with ease and they try to like get you to open up about other aspects of your life. And then they sort of slowly seg into what they really want to talk about. And but by then they already put you in at enough ease to where you'd feel comfortable enough to talk about the hard truths. And yeah, that's really how I approached the book. It was like, if I picked up on those skills in my 10 plus years as an investigator, I think this would be helpful for other people too.
Yeah.
Because the angle with my book was that, with the research that I've done with the communication skills books out there, there's a lot that focuses on captivating people or having a certain amount of charisma and charm, but none that really focuses on really like delving into how to get to the uncomfortable truths of relationships or environments. Because in order to get to the truth, you have to like you have to come into it with a mind of like, how can I address certain things to improve upon? Like, and I'm talking about um, hidden truths in a friendship that you wish you could improve upon or like make it healthier, but you can't do that unless you have a conversation about that. And I think
Yeah.
with this book, I tried to lay out the frameworks that investigators use and um, situational awareness that you can keep in the back of your mind when you approach conversations. So,
Yeah. I mean, perhaps charisma is like a way to get to what we're talking about. I'm just kind of alluding to, these other kind of communication books that you just kind of referenced. That
mhm.
is perhaps a way, but it's probably not the strong force way. I think to your point, the strong force way is kind of an unbridled curiosity, which I think is both the antithesis of any defensiveness, right? Like you can't be defensive and curious at the same time. And, so it's that sort of curiosity coupled with like a true kind of like focus on the other person, kind of getting out of our own head. I saw this video, and I think when you moved to where you lived, you started like a social thing, right?
Yeah,
Talk to us a little bit about that, because I think that is like such a picture of how we, in many cases, whether we're investigators or we're just human beings in a new town, we spend sort of too much time in our own head, and it ends up kind of creating a headwind for us to kind of synthesize or like create the connections necessary for success, whether that's in an investigation, uncovering those truths, or success in sort of interpersonal relationships.
yeah. Actually, I'm really excited to talk about that. So, when I first moved into the PNW, I was new in town and I didn't know anybody. And I started this group in town and just sort of as a way for me to like make some friends. And like for me, I thought, well, if I'm in this situation where I feel lonely and I'm just trying to struggle, I was like set out a social life and I feel a little bit lost, then I'm like, well, there must be other people in town that feel the same way. So for me, like I set up this group and it started off with like 16 members. And in the course of like 4 to 5 years, it grew to over 2,000 members.
Wow.
And Yeah. You know
That's
what? Actually,
wild.
it's 2,500 now. So
That's crazy.
yeah, yeah. And for me, like it just started off with really just setting up events each month, like whether it's like bowling or disc golf or roller skating. It could be a number of things. Um, and I set it up with each month, and then more people came with every event. And the thing I picked up on when it comes to like hosting events, and it's uh it's still the same people skills that I used as an investigator, but I just transferred it as a host, is that I noticed that there's a lot of people that struggle with making friends, especially as an adult.
Right.
And, I see it on their face as soon as they come into events. They're like really nervous and they're like, where do I go? How do I start talking to people?
Right.
And they are so in their head that they don't realize that everyone else is just as nervous as they are. And one thing I tell people when they leave is like, if you want to make friends, it's like that saying goes, if you want to make a friend, you got to be a friend. So I say, try to keep coming to events. And that's one way to make friends is because people tend to open up and feel at ease with you the more they see you because they get a knowledge of each time of who you are and whether they can see themselves connecting with you. And I think that may be one of the stumbling blocks uh, in which consistency is key. But everyone, I get it. Everyone's busy with their own lives. They get distracted with other things. But it's like the way you'd want a friend to like keep showing up for you, you got to do that too. And yeah, it starts off really superficial and casual, but eventually it's just like, outside of these meetup events, you can ask other people to like just go to the movies with you or go hiking or just like whatever personal activities you want to do outside of the meetup events. Because I think in this age of like social media and, the digital age is just that we live so much inside our head, but we're not present enough with other people.
Right.
Right. And, it's a very like self-absorbed, self-centered way of thinking. And I don't mean that in a negative context. I mean that that's just the way the world is right now.
Yeah.
And I think a way of building magnetism and is like just being open for other people. And I get it, charisma is not something that's innate in everybody. Magnetism is not something that's innate in everybody. Not everybody's going to be born, exuberant with this like a social butterfly. But even with that being said, it's like you don't have to be if you just are open enough and receptive enough to other people when you talk to them. Because one thing I mentioned in the book is that every person is a universe with stories within them. And it's just a matter of like spending enough time and energy to get those stories opened up. And it would be beneficial. And yeah, you can walk away from a conversation a little richer in knowledge than you started off with because you're open enough to want to find out about the other person. And yeah, to circle back to what investigators do, they do the same thing, but they, in a work setting, may have an allegation they work with, but they're not in it to wall you up. They're trying to get you to get the walls down, to break it down. So
Yeah, there's such a corollary there, right? I love that saying, if you want to or if you want a friend, be a friend. I think that's so true. I think like the essence of friendship is, oh, you too? Like whatever that is. Oh, you like that movie too? Oh, you hate that politician too, right? Like there's some kind of a shared thing. And I think it kind of translates into like people are, me and you are friends if you're like me and you like me. That's what I think. And so in order to like uncover those things, to your point, because there's this German word for this thing when you see somebody walking across a crosswalk and you realize that they're not just an avatar, they're a person with history and all these sort of stories, this universe kind of packed full of stories that you kind of referred to. I think in any interaction, whether it's a social one or it's an investigative one, you have to kind of unpack that thing, and you have to, again, to your point, have this certain level of openness, which is sort of an outward focus. It's not inside your own head. The essence of curiosity is like, there's something new outside of my head that I'm interested in, like pulling into my head, right? Like there's a certain set of knowledge that I have in my brain. And when somebody is like, unbridled, when they're exhibiting unbridled curiosity, they're really sort of like, greedily trying to like get more experience, more knowledge, more information. And you kind of can't do both, Someone did this experiment where they said, okay, count to 5. And someone said 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And they said, okay, say the first 5 letters of the alphabet. And they said A, B, C, D, E, F, whatever it is. And they say, okay, now do them alternating. And they say 1, A, 2, B, 3, C. Like at some point it kind of starts to break down, and it's meant to prove that we're not really good at multitasking as human beings. You can only really do one thing at a time. And so when you're jumping between letters and you're jumping between numbers, you have to kind of task switch. And I think in a lot of social interactions, what you kind of described, or what you kind of have talked about in this current era that we're in, where everybody is kind of inside their head, it's hard to jump in and out. And I think grabbing a hold of that like pure curiosity allows for all that like defensiveness that kind of keeps us walled up in our own heads. It allows that to kind of melt away, and you can really kind of focus on that other person. And I think, if the other person is questioning, does this person like me, and is this person like me? Well, when you're helping, when you're totally focused on the other person, you're totally, curiously trying to understand them, those walls are naturally going to come down, as opposed to that sort of cold, that cold interrogation room with the light bulb suspended from the wire, that is very easy to stay kind of walled up in.
Exactly. Yeah, because I've seen it before where if it's like whether it's like an interview room or just like a meetup event, it's this panicked look that people have on their faces where I can just see their eyes like moving around where like, okay, what's the next thing I can say to make me look cool? What can I say that's, funnier than what that other person said? And it's like, people, you're missing the point when you're too much like thinking about how am I going to impress people. You're actually missing the opportunity
100%.
to impress people by just like learning about the other person and then building.
People are not friends with people because they're impressive. People are friends with people because they're like them and they like them. That's what I believe. I really believe that. And I think that desire to say, you went to Japan. Oh, I went to Japan. To your point, that doesn't create any actual connection. The strong force there, I think, is really like, even if I lived in Japan, asking you 5 or 6 questions about your time in Japan, drastically increases the odds of a connection as opposed to me saying, I also went to Japan. Do you know what I'm saying?
Right. Because like life shouldn't always be like a one-up game.
Totally.
And exactly. Because like instead of saying, oh, yeah, I went to Japan and then I hopped over to South Korea and then like make it immediately about you. It's just like asking, how did you like the interacting with the everyday people in Japan, or what was
Right.
the coolest meal you ate over there, or what city would you recommend me visiting while in Japan? Because I was thinking about going there too, and it gets people excited, and then they feel more at ease with you. And yeah, I think that's a key factor in improving relationships, whether it's like friendships or like a dating scenario. It's like people really feel at ease when you make them feel at home, or they see themselves in you. And that's how like family relationships and friendships are strengthened. And when it comes to this book, I thought about what led me to writing this book, because it wasn't something I like thought all along, oh, someday I'm just going to write this book. I think for me, it was like even stemming back from my childhood. And I was somebody who, as a kid, so keep in mind, I'm a kid of the 90s, and Parental supervision really wasn't much of a thing for me growing up. And um, so the TV was my babysitter. And I just remember as a 7-year-old, I'd watch Cops and just really just being so fascinated with the hot messness of what I just saw. And yeah, I see like these adults just like getting into fights and crazy situations, and I'm thinking, how did they end up in that way? Like, because before filming, there's a whole bunch of other stuff that happened before that to like led up to that point, and I thought
Right.
like, I think that's what led me to whether I pre-planned it or not was like it was the interest of human dynamics. And I thought about what could have happened in that scenario that could have like changed things up for the better before they ended up being filmed on Cops. And um okay, can I just share the story? Like I remember like as a little kid, there was this episode of Cops in which there was like this divorced couple, and this like ex-wife was so angry because after the divorce was finalized, her ex-husband was still like camping out in her driveway. So then she calls 911, and she's like, "Y'all better get my deadbeat husband off my driveway. I had enough of his deadbeat ass." And I'm not gonna swear, but like, so then dispatch sends the deputies out to the driveway, and the camera crew shows up, and like sure enough, like he's camped out in the driveway of this pickup truck, and the cops are like knocking on the window, and they're like, "Sir, you just got to move on with your life, like, sir, what's your name?" And the ex-wife was like, "SOB is what his name is." And I just like that just stood out to me because I'm like, this is the coolest show on earth. And like what I picked up on was from that show was like the cops, they were asking immediately, "What's your name?" to the ex-husband. And I thought, that's a really good tactic to use is like in like tense situations and hostile situations where we're all inevitably going to end up in, it's like asking someone else for their name is a good grounding technique. And I absorbed that as a child, and I'm like, and I just like as an investigator now, it's like that's something I still keep in my repertoire is like just to get people at ease, whether it's like through interviews or even meetup events, is just like asking what their name is and then dropping it in a couple of conversations because I could see it like when you say someone's name, instead of them being so lost in their thoughts about how am I going to get out of this? How am I going to impress this other person? It's like when you say their name, it's like, oh, the direction goes and the attention goes back to you. So I think that's something else I want to like share with other people is like, it's really simple, but it's really profound. It's just like simply saying their name. And
Well, it humanizes them. There's this guy that I like. You've probably heard of him, Chris Voss. He's like a famous FBI investigator, and he wrote this book, "Never Split the Difference," which is basically applying, these FBI hostage negotiation techniques to business, essentially, right? And he has a bunch of these. He did a series on Masterclass about his book, essentially. And so I've started following on social and stuff like this. And two things I think I want to share from him. Back to what you were saying. So he does this thing on the masterclass course where these two people meet, and the one person, the subject, and then him, I guess, and they film like a 15-minute conversation, and he merely mirrors the other person. He mirrors them, everything they say. He, says the last couple of words with a question, blah, blah, blah. And this woman is just talking to him for 15 minutes. And then they interview her afterwards, and they ask her, like, how do you feel? What's your impression of this person? And she just had all these positive things to say. And so she's saying, yeah, he seems like really cool and really great and blah, 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 blah. And then they start asking her a couple of questions like about him, and she doesn't have any answer for them because he didn't talk about himself at all. Like, it was literally like 5% of the conversation was his words, just asking questions, mirroring, and 95% was her talking. And so I think that, kind of to your point from before, that closeness is really a function of the extent to which somebody feels seen and feels understood. Like, the more somebody feels seen and understood, the more comfortable they feel, the more that guard comes down and the more open they are, back to your kind of investigation point. And to your point about like the name, the way that the name humanizes you. I saw this TikTok that he did recently, and he was telling this story that he was in a bar, and this big guy comes up to him, like, very confrontational, very aggressive, because he was sitting in this guy's seat. And he talked about what he did to diffuse that situation. It's very simple. It's exactly what you said. He said, "Hey, how you doing? I'm Chris." And he introduced himself and he put his hand out. And it's like so much harder to attack somebody who you've been personalized or who's been personalized. And like, we all, when you learn someone's name, kind of to your point, they move from this sort of faceless, body or this faceless avatar that kind of inhabits your world to like a human being like you. And that, to your point, is an extremely powerful way to kind of, interrupt the pattern, that sort of pattern of self-talk or that pattern of being in your own head by saying someone's name or bringing your own name to it, to really kind of humanize it and, remind that, we're just kind of two people kind of probably going through a similar type of experience.
Exactly. And I hope I don't mind I turn it to you, but like, I'm just curious with you, like, were you somebody that had like this intuitive sense of like how to put other people at ease when you speak to others, or was
So
this
I
something that
moved
was
around
learned?
a lot. So I don't know. I'm not really sure. I think I'm probably naturally extroverted.
Mm.
And I went to like more than 10 different schools before high school. So I was always the new kid. And so I think in that experience, I feel like I just kind of figured some things out on how to, and like looking back, I feel like, okay, I can kind of maybe articulate those things a little bit better and kind of turn them into like deployable tactics. But I think it's probably rooted in that. And, I just think in general, like, people want to feel accepted. People don't want to
Mhm.
be on trial. And so I think the sooner you can make somebody feel accepted, the sooner you can kind of put them at ease, and the sooner you can get down to like the real person, because we all walk around with these like layers of like costumes or like facades or armor, and like the Ashley you are or the Nick I am with my spouse or with, a sibling is probably different than the Nick that shows up or the Ashley that shows up for like a job interview or something, right? Like, there's several layers of like this sort of put on facade that we all naturally have. I believe that all the closest relationships that we all as human beings have, though, are between our authentic selves and somebody else who knows that authentic self. It's not with these fake versions of ourselves. You know what I'm saying? So
Mhm.
I think so that's kind of a pattern that I've noticed. And so I just think like the sooner I can help create the circumstances for that authentic connection to happen, the more likely, any connection that there could be. You know what I'm saying?
Right. And yeah, especially with you, with each environment changing, it was like it seems like it was like a social survival skill that you had to pick up on.
Yeah. I think I used to think that, but as time has gone on, and I've met other people that moved around a lot, that kind of turned into a different type of person. Like, I'm very outgoing, I'm very, extroverted. I think perhaps if I was introverted, those are maybe skills that I wouldn't have had to pick up, and I could have kind of become more isolated or something like that. So I think it's partially a function of like how I'm wired. You know what I'm saying? Like, some people, I don't know. I think I'm naturally wired to have sort of an outward, a perception of what's outside more versus what's inside. You know what I mean? So I think that kind of played a part in maybe developing, whatever I might have in this realm.
Gotcha. Yeah, I would say for me, I'm more introverted.
Mm-hmm.
And you know, I get these responses sometimes when I'm like running like these meetup events is like people are surprised that I started up a social group, and then I tell them that I'm introverted. It's like, how could you possibly do that? Like, and like I know that's surprising to people, and I think one of the biggest misconceptions out there is that introverts are not social people.
I agree. I agree 100%.
Right. And the thing is like they very much are, it's just a matter of they also need time to recharge and to kind of like unwind before they can be social again. Because we're all social creatures that like.
Totally. I mean, if you look at an introvert with their best friend, you probably can't tell that they're an introvert or not, because they're exhibiting extrovert type sort of characteristics. You know what I mean? And so I heard this quote, I don't know, a year or so ago, and it said, introverts are just extroverts with taste. So an extrovert will be friends with anybody. An introvert has like a little bit more of a, like, a little bit of a higher bar. But I mean, to your exact point, some of my closest friends, and we have deep conversations and we talk for, a long time, they would probably describe themselves as introverts. So I think the way somebody shows up, so thus then it seems like the way somebody shows up in a kind of an interpersonal interaction is kind of a function of the extent to which they're comfortable in the unknown or something. You know what I'm saying? It's really kind of that.
I'm going to take that if like, I'll be like, darling, I'm an introvert with taste. And
there you go.
They have really bougie too.
But how does that feel for me? I got no taste. You know what I mean? It's like those people that see any movie and they're like, that movie was amazing. It's like, are you 7? Are you 7 years old?
I see. No, like, yeah, I was like, that's a really great point to add about, to add to that. It's like, but we need both, we need both extroverts and introverts.
100%.
Yeah.
Well, and like, introverts, I think, are a lot more thoughtful, and they're a lot more, they don't just say things, right? Like they're usually a little bit more measured with their words, and they're a little bit more kind of, I don't know if cerebral, I guess the word is thoughtful. Yeah. And I think it's you absolutely need both. And I think introverts, there's a lot of like misinformation out there for introverts, and they're not like these, like, I don't know, there's nothing like wrong with an introvert. It's not like you should be extroverted. You know what I'm saying? It's like you should be whatever you are, and you should figure out kind of tactics to get what you need out of life, regardless of how you're wired, I think.
Exactly. What I was thinking as you were saying that was, like I've seen in group conversations, immediately who's the introvert, because the introvert in the group is usually the ones that they're quiet, but they're so enjoying the group that they're with that they're absorbing other people's stories, they're listening, and if there's a joke, they're cracking a laugh with them, and they're not saying a word, but they're still very much in the group.
Yeah, they're engaged.
Right. And oftentimes, like, they're the springboard for other people's ideas and advice. So it's like, especially with the extroverts in the room, it's like the extroverts are like, it's almost like they're seeking the reaction from other people, and that the introverts are like the perfect support to like give the extroverts what they need. So it's like a very yin yang sort of
Totally
dynamic.
I used to think that only extroverts were like funny people. And I have this buddy from college who I was like friends with him for a while. And before I realized like how funny he was, he's like one of the funniest people I've ever met. And he's super introverted, but like that observant thing that he naturally has. I mean, he sees all the details, and I mean, he's very, very, very unbelievably funny. And I'm so interested in this kind of introvert extrovert thing because it really shows up in so many different ways. And as I've started to, so many of like the most famous comedians would describe themselves as introverts, which was such like a surprise to me, because you see them up on stage, and that seems like such like a very sort of extroverted thing, right? Like it's like it seems like a very extroverted craft. You're on stage talking to hundreds or thousands of people or something. And the same is true for speeches and, seminars and stuff like that. But many times I think the best ones are introverts because they're so much more thoughtful and they're more observant and they naturally have, I don't know, sort of just a more of a depth to them or something.
Exactly. Yeah. Because, before they get on stage, is like they're thinking of all the material and they're filtering out what's funny, what's not funny. And it's like I know before they get up on stage, it's like they're probably spending hours, if not a few days, thinking about the material in their stand-up that's going to be unique and funny on their own.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like, but in order to do that, they also need like alone time and also like time to absorb everything
Time to write
before
their
it gets.
jokes, uninterrupted time to write the jokes, all that. Yeah.
Yeah. Um, and then it's like they turn the on switch and they're extroverted when they need to be.
That's
So
right.
it's really interesting how like comedians work and
Yeah. Um, the, I don't know. I mean, it's almost like we live in this extroverted world, and I've talked to some introverts and they feel like out of place in it because they don't want to be on camera or they don't want to do those extroverted things. And it's like, it's kind of fake. It's kind of all fake. I mean, your life is really kind of the sum total of your relationships. And it's not like introverts can't speak the same language or they're not human beings. You know what I'm saying? Like it sends such a false signal. I think, our current era, kind of to your point, our current era or this current chapter that we're in, I think it sends a mixed signal. And yeah, it's very interesting. How quickly can you kind of tune in? Like when you're meeting someone for the first time or you're doing an investigation, what kind of algorithm are you running to try to pick the lock? I mean, because that's really what we're talking about, right? You're picking the lock on friendship. There's some walls up, right, that you have to kind of move out of the way. You're trying to uncover some truth from the person that you're doing the investigation on or with or whatever. You need to get those walls down. What is kind of the process for that in your mind? What is the algorithm that you've built? Like, are there certain questions that you're asking off the bat? Are there certain sort of phases in your mind that you need to sort of work through, like, get them comfortable and then I can kind of start scratching like how do you kind of approach it?
that's a good question. So the way I would approach it is I have a certain like goal I have in my mind and I keep that in the back of my mind. But a lot of what I'm doing is just playing by ear and being receptive to what that person is in front of me. So I'm gonna gauge their mood. I'm gonna see what their personality is like. I'm gonna read their body language, and I and from there I usually start off with small talk. I know not everybody likes small talk, but for me, it's been helpful to like kind of get people at ease a little bit. And I see from there if they're in the mood to want to talk about some like deeper conversations from there. And sometimes they are, and sometimes they're not. And if they aren't at that moment, I'm like, okay, well, we'll revisit this at another time. So yeah, I think to add to what you're saying, it's with conversations, it's just in getting people to open up. Um, it's rarely a one and done situation. Usually it's like multiple conversations. And from each conversation, you pick up a truth here and there. And from there, it's like a mosaic. And then you really get a sense of who that person is. Like with investigators, it's really in most cases, it's rarely just like one conversation. They usually talk to the same subject or witness over and over again because there's some things that were missed from the past interviews. And yeah, I think it's very so shows like Law and Order or like, those cop shows, they're really good at making investigations seem like sexy or glamorous. And in real life, it's just in order to be an investigator and to get people open up, it's like you have to be patient, you have to be persistent, and I think that's the same could be applied for people who want to like strengthen their own social skills in their own life. It's just like is being patient and persistent and really just reading the room and kind of like to touch back what we talked about before is being receptive enough to get a sense of like what this person is like to see if it's even worth deciding then and there if I'm going to go into these hard conversations. Like three questions I have in the back of my mind when I like talk to other people is, does it need to be said? Does it need to be said by me? Does it need to be said by me right now? And if the answer is no for all of that, that's when I'm like, okay, wait for another time. That's ultimately like tagged.
So
So
what is it? Does it need to be said? Does it need to be said by me? And does it need to be said now?
yeah, by me right now. And those are the three questions I have on my mind before I delve into a hard conversation. And
Hmm. That's
and
interesting. You may change my life with those three questions because I don't even ask the first one.
uh, it's like, but I get it though, because like when you're so curious, you just want to ask right now. And the thing is, like, if the thing about being impulsive is like you sort of cheat yourself from figuring out what is the truth of the matter,
Mm.
because people aren't going to just tell you very rarely they're going to tell you exactly who they are in that moment. So it's just like you got to like
Yeah, you're kind of setting
strategize.
yourself up for an error in a way, or you
Right.
could
Yeah.
be, you know?
Yeah. And then you're not benefiting yourself or the other
Right.
person
It's like
if
the false
you,
sense of clarity or something.
right. Because most people, when they feel up at arms, they're going to just say whatever they want to say to kind of get you off their backs.
Right.
And um, I've noticed that sometimes too with like police questioning is like, which by the way, they have a really tough job. You know, they go into it, they know everyone's lying to them.
Right.
And it's like, and then the people that are being questioned, they're just gonna say, I'm just gonna say whatever so they can get off my back.
Right.
But it's like, is that really needed in the situation where things are so dire? Like the truth is really helpful. Like say if someone's in a abusive domestic situation or like any sort of hostile situation where help is really needed, it's like, yeah, I think it's like it's important to get people, if not friendly, at least just approachable to get people to open up.
Yeah,
And
I think like my big takeaway from our conversation is really like anytime you can double down on openness and or curiosity, you're probably going to get more information and you're probably going to increase the odds of success. Whether again, it's making that person feel at ease, maybe making that person feel like they want to be your friend, making that person feel like they're ready to share something with you. It's really not about like, what am I going to say next? It's really about like, what more can I learn about this other person? And I think, you know, in this age of, you know, a thirst for authenticity, I think people can tell really quickly if the person they're talking to is present or not, and if their mind is somewhere else or if they're in their own head. And all those things, given the negativity bias that all humans have, kind of can contribute to the other person's walls like remaining up longer than they might otherwise need to be, you know?
exactly. And yeah, like one thing, last thing I want to add is like the greatest conversation skill that investigators ask another person is, and then what happened? Because once you get people in the middle of their story and to kind of like get more out of them, that's just like it's like you give them a chance to be a narrator, and then
Yeah.
you're able to pick up more information that way too.
Yeah. And you're like reinforcing or redoubling your, or at least reconveying your desire to learn more about them. And I think people like talking about themselves at the end of the day. So if we can get over that hump and get people's walls down, like that dam breaks loose, you know?
Exactly, yeah.
So as we wrap up, I just want to, I asked this question to everybody, but what is one piece of advice, if you can go back in time, that you would give to a young Ashley? One piece of advice that you wish you had earlier?
That is a good question. I would tell her that you don't have to figure it all at once in terms of like your career path and the person you want to be, like in terms of like what can I give to the world. I just felt this pressure within myself to um, be this perfect version of Ashley, and just realizing that no one's asking for the perfect version of Ashley. They're asking for a present Ashley.
Mm.
And yeah, to not be hard on yourself. And yeah, everything's going to come in time, and be patient. So
That's good advice. That's good advice for a young Nick as well.
good.
Well, Ashley, thank you so much. We're going to feature your book on the Ethics Verse. That's our weekly show on ethics and compliance and stuff like that. So we'll give away some copies of that. But thank you so much for coming on The Ethics Experts. This was a lot of fun. The book is A Curious Mind, Mastering the Art of Investigative Conversations. You can get that on Amazon or on The Ethics Experts, or on the Ethics Verse for that matter. Thank you so much, Ashley.
Oh, thank you for your time. Thanks.
See you next time.
Bye-bye.